Hello everyone, my name is Scalti, and today we're going to be looking at creating a factory making 60 stators per minute at 100% efficiency. I hope you enjoy. So before we get the build started, let's go over what we're going to need for the factory. On the right you can see that we're going to need 8 smelters, 6 foundries, 25 constructors, and 12 assemblers. The power draw, not including miners, is going to be 408 megawatts, and I'm not including the miner power draw simply because everyone's situation is going to be different based on miners being used and the node purity, because you'll be doing some underclocking and overclocking, so it's too many variables to include. So in terms of everything but the miners, 408 megawatts is what you're going to need to get this up and running. Additionally, the space for this is going to be, in this example here, 5 by 11. The minimum size you're going to want is going to be 3 by 9. But the building can get a little tight based on how many smelters and foundries you're going to be using. And before we go ahead and get into where we're going to be placing those smelters and foundries, I want to go over where the inputs for these ores are going to be located. So we have the iron ore coming in over here on the short edge. We have our coal coming in here, and we have our copper coming in over here. Now I know you guys might not be building your factory in the exact same location that I am building, but what I would recommend is bringing your iron and coal over in on one side and your copper on the other, and that will dictate kind of how you follow along on this guide here. Reason being, we're going to have our 8 smelters over here on these 4 foundations, and then we're going to have our foundries over here on these 6, if you will. And so by bringing your steel and iron in over on this side in this example, and your copper in over on this side, will help keep your belting underneath nice and clean. So let's go ahead and get our walls in place to get our factory started. So we want our 4 single wall conveyors over here, our other 4 over here, and then we're going to be doing 2 wall conveyor, normal, 2, normal, 2. Go ahead and close these sides in as well. And then we got our 2, normal, 2, normal, and 2. And for those that do not know, I am currently using the Smart mod that allows me to place foundations, structures, walls, etc. in one fell swoop. Very efficient, saves a lot of time, keeps these guides moving nice and smoothly. So let's go ahead and get our smelters in place now. And when you place your smelters, you want them hanging off the edge by just a little bit, and this enables the lifts to connect down below nice and clean without the need of additional belt work. And also you can kind of see here, because the size of the foundry is a little different than the smelter, as you can see in the white hitbox surrounding both structures, but we have that green snapping line to tell us that it is centered in line with the smelters next to it, and that's exactly where you want the foundry to be hanging off. It looks like it's definitely hanging off by a good bit more, but that's exactly what we want for when we place our lifts. So let's go ahead and get the rest of these in place. Now we can get these connected up with our lifts, and we can just use our Mark 1s, and they're not on my hotbar for whatever reason. Interesting. And we'll go ahead and get these built up as well. The load balancing down below is going to be nice and clean. And when you're bringing in your material, we're going to be needing, and I did not cover this, I apologize, 270 coal, 270 iron, and 240 copper ore. So that means we're going to need our Mark III belts coming in for our iron and our coal, and where we have our foundries over here. So let's go ahead and get our iron sorted out first. And so what we're going to do, where our iron's coming in, I'm going to split this immediately. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap 2 lines of coal around each side. And so over here, I'm going to be doing 2 different types of splitting, if you will, or at least on 2 different sides. So the iron is going to be splitting underneath these 8x1 foundations, but in line with the foundries above. So we're going to go ahead and keep the left side on this side and the right side over here dedicated to our iron ore to keep things organized. And so right underneath at the edge of the corner of the foundation, I'm going to place our splitter feeding the input is on this side. And so that's essentially going to enable us to take a lift and connect it just like that. I'm going to take our lifts and put them on the other 2 here, and then we'll get these connected up using Mark 1 belts. Just like that. And again, we have 270 coming in, so we're going to need to use another Mark III belt, which is currently an assembler. Interesting. So we're going to bring our Mark III all the way down and essentially get it in line with our splitter here and repeat the process on the other side. So again, we're going to mirror it. So on this side, it's going to be on the right. If you want to switch it around, it's up to you. Essentially, we just want to do a 1 to 6 splitting function overall. Also, you saw me just go through the belt there. I'm using no clip at the moment just to keep things running smoothly. And so now we want to bring in our coal. And so we're pretty much going to be doing the same thing, except we're going to be switching it around just a little bit. So what we're going to do is take our splitter and put it essentially the opposite corner on the far edge of the foundation. So once again, we can take our lift and it will connect right in to our splitter and repeat that process for the other 5. And when placing the lifts on the middle ones, you want to make sure you get your splitter in first. I guess technically it doesn't matter. Sometimes there are certain situations where if you build the splitter a little closer, you can still connect it, and you want to make sure you get that splitter connected first, but in this situation, not necessary. Now we need to split that coal in the middle here to ensure everything gets balanced out evenly. And so we want to make sure that we're not interfering with the lift here that we're going to be utilizing for our copper ingots. Sorry, thank you. And so we want to be sure to kind of route our coal off to the side here and bring it into the middle this way. Just like that. And then for our copper coming in, pretty simple. We're just going to be doing a simple 1 to 8. So in between all of these, we're going to take our splitter. And then what I'm going to do here is you can either split over here and kind of do it like we did with the iron ore and split behind and round everything up. I'm just going to go ahead and split here and then in between the two, and then we just connect our lifts just like this. But these are pretty simple load splits, so do them however you would prefer. You just want to get them sorted out so that way it's all even. And that has our first floor essentially complete before we get our logistics in place here. And so what we want to do is take all of our copper ingots that will be coming out of the smelters and running them off to their respective short edge where all of the smelters are, the side that all of these smelters are on. So we can use Mark 1s to get these all connected to the lifts, and then between the first set and second set, we can use a Mark 1, and then here's where we want to go Mark 2, and then this last one over here will be a Mark 3 overall. Actually, I'm sorry, this is going to be a Mark 3 as well. Don't want to steer you wrong there. Ultimately, if you wanted to use Mark 3 belts throughout the whole system, I'm sorry, not throughout the whole system, but on this floor, you are more than welcome to do so. And then over here, we want to get all of our pipes onto one line as well. So we can ignore this foundry here, and then essentially just get these all merged up, heading off toward the short edge. Mark 2s, we got 90 plus 45 is 135, so we actually need to go to a Mark 3 here, and then Mark 3 the rest of the way. Nothing here on the edge because we're eventually going to do a lift up, and that will give us all of our steel ingots, and that is the first floor complete. For our next floor, we're going to be taking care of our copper ingots over here, and to get the second floor started, we're going to take an 8x4 foundation and build that up effectively 5 times, since no foundations over here can be built upon. Go ahead and delete all the ones underneath, and this is where we're going to be taking our 8x1 foundations, building 4 of them next to the 8x4, deleting out the middle 2, getting rid of the 8x4, and this gives us our sandwich layer. And when building this, you want to make sure that you construct both top and bottom before we do any of the beltwork in the middle, and you want this to cover the 9x3 foundation area below. You want to make sure that you have both complete, otherwise if you put any kind of splitters or merges in here, they are too high and result in some clipping, and you can build the splitters and mergers into the foundations, but you cannot build the foundations into these splitters or mergers. So for the constructor placement, we're going to need 16, and we're going to use some symmetry here. So essentially on the respective mirrored side, we're going to be placing our 8 constructors on this side, and then the other 8 on the opposite. So let's go ahead and get our walls in place first. It's definitely a huge help, trust me. I've made plenty of mistakes building all the constructors first and then having to delete the constructors to get the walls in place, and it's an annoying mess. So don't be like me, unless you want to build my factories. All right, now we need to bring up our copper ingots. So it's going to be a normal conveyor wall here. I'm going to leave the one wall here so that way you can get inside and do all of your belt work. Let's go ahead and get our constructors in place first. Now we can get these belted up. Bring our copper ingots up. Now for this, it's going to be kind of cool. So we need to do a 1:16 split, and to not get too crazy with the splitters and mergers, or I'm sorry, just the splitters in here, what we can do is in the middle of the first set of 8, we want to take our splitter facing toward the middle, in line with our copper ingots coming up, and then from each side we're going to do a splitter right next to it. And in between, this is specific, and I'll explain why, we want to use Mark 1 belts. And now we'll come down to the second set, and we will repeat that same process. Except for, or I'm sorry, no, yep, that's correct. Mark 1 belts in between. Apologies. Get our splitters in place up here as well. And we can use Mark 1s here as well. And so the reason why we want to use specifically our Mark 1s on the first set, or the first 3 splitter system, is we have a line of 240 coming up from here. And we do 240 into a line of 60, a line of 60, and then connecting each set will be a line of 120. Now normally you would get 240 divided by 3 would be 80, 80, and 80. However, the Mark 1 belts can only transport 60 items per minute. As a result, we're going to get a line of 60 on this side, a line of 60 on this side, and then what would be 80, so we have a difference of 20. So the 20 will go onto the middle belt, and the 20 over here will go on the middle belt, and that'll give us our 120 continuing forward, because 80 plus 20 and 20 is 120. Now we can go ahead and just do a very simple split on these and just do a 1 to 4. So we just need to place an additional 2 splitters on each side in between our constructors, like so. And then we get that connected up with our Mark 1 belts. Repeat the process on the opposite side here. Go ahead and get these connected up as well. And we repeat the same thing over on this set as well. Pretty simple and straightforward. That is essentially this floor load balanced for our constructors up top. And we go ahead and get this closed off over here. Just like that. For the output logistics, we're going to be making 4 separate lines for our wire. So in front of each constructor, facing off toward their respective short edge, we want to place a merger. Except for the middle 4, essentially, since these can just get fed straight into these mergers that we just placed right there. Now we just gotta get these all connected up. The output for the wire is going to be 60 per minute, so we can do 30, 30, and that's 60 on these. Mark IIs here. And we can do Mark IIs at the edge here. Oh. Repeat the process on the other side. And that is that floor complete. Next up is our floor for our steel pipes. And so we want to go ahead and take a foundation, build in the middle here, and build this up 3 times. Get rid of the bottom 2. And we will get our next sandwich layer in place. And so we have our steel pipes, our steel ingots coming up over here, and we're going to be feeding that off into our 9 constructors remaining. Over on the right you can see it says 23, and that's just because it doesn't update based on the smart mod. So for the 9 constructors, we're going to place them all on this edge right here. I'm placing them specifically over here as an aesthetic thing, simply because the viewing angle of the factory is going to be predominantly over here. So I want to be able to see all of that essential manufacturing in action versus the other side, but it's completely up to you. You just want to get these all on one side. So let's go ahead and get our walls in place like so. Constructors up next, and our belts. Go ahead and get our steel pipes up instead of coming up on one single line. I'm sorry, I keep saying steel pipes. We want to bring up our steel ingots. And here we will just be doing a simple 1:9 split. So in front of the first 3 in the middle, I'm going to place a splitter in the middle of the foundation. If you place it any closer to this wall, the vertical dip here, or this little slope that you get, you'll get an invalid shape for the belt. So you want to make sure that these splitters are placed no closer than the middle of the foundation. So those 3 are complete. We have these 3 here, and these 3 on the far edge. And then in front of this splitter, we want to place another one and get this connected up here. And then we have our 270 into 3 lines of 90. So these are Mark II belts for this. And then split it off like so. Oh, okay, that does have a belt. And that's the load balancing for this floor. Really nice and simple. Now for the belting on this floor, and I'll get the walls in place after this, we want to take from our middle constructor a splitter and set it in the middle here. And then in front of each constructor going off toward the short edge, we want to place a merger. And we want 2 separate belts of steel pipes going up because we're going to have 2 floors making stators. And for the load balancing, or the logistics on those floors, it's easier to do 2 lines instead of having them all feed onto 1. So from the middle here, and we'll double check our steel pipe. I'm pretty sure it's 20 per minute. Okay, so we got 20, so we got 10, 30, 50, and here's where we want to switch up to a Mark II for our 70, and then 90. Repeat the process on the other side. So we got 10, 30, 50, 70, and 90. Go ahead and get these walls in place now. Just like that. Alright, our next floor is going to be for settlers, and for that we're going to build a double high sandwich layer to make things a little bit more cozy, if you will. So for this we're going to build our 8x4 foundations up 4 times. And place our 8x1 foundations. Get rid of the middle 6 and the other 8x4 foundations and build out this sandwich layer. And then for our assembler placement, we're going to be doing the 4 corners. One here, and the other 2 corners, just like this. And so we're going to go ahead and get our walls in place first. And for that, we want our wall conveyors to be the bottom, like so. Now when it comes to bringing our items up, we're going to do something a little interesting here. We're actually going to only bring our steel pipes up on one side. So we'll choose this side for our steel pipes, and we'll connect that with a Mark II lift. And then our wire from this side is going to skip and go up to the second floor that's going to be making stators. And the steel pipes on this side will skip and go to the next floor making stators, which means we want to bring our wire up, which means we're going to be using our 2 conveyor wall. Get these connected up with our Mark II lifts. Let's go ahead and get our assemblers in place now. And the inputs are all going to be less than 60, so we can use Mark I lifts all around. And before we do any building inside, let's go ahead and get our walls in place, because we're going to be needing to build up some foundations on the inside to make running our belts a little easier. Now for the inside belting, first and foremost, we're going to do our steel pipes that are coming up. And so for that, it's a simple 1-to-6 split. So where the steel pipes are coming up, we're going to run this all the way down in the middle until you come to the first input for our side assembler on the long edges. And we're going to place our splitter here in the middle. One next to it, like so. That is in line with the inputs of these assemblers over here. And then bring our other splitter up and connect it, or I'm sorry, not connect it, but place it in front of the first and in line with these ones here. And we'll get these all connected up. So we have our Mark I here, Mark I coming down here. This will be our Mark II. And then Mark I's for the remainder. Like so. So those are all connected up. Now when it comes to the wire that we have coming up, where the wire is coming up 2 foundations in. So right here, you want to build a cross section of 3 foundations. And then in the middle, on the inside, so we want this gap over here between the wall and the splitter. We'll do the same thing over here. We'll have our copper wire coming up, like so. And then we will go ahead and feed this essentially down and in to the assembler here. Get the process over here. Oh, 1 step too far. Like so. We'll bring this middle one down here and connect it with that assembler. And then this one, come over here and connect just like that. And then these other 2 will essentially route over to the other side using some stackable conveyor pulls. And you can kind of place these however you want. You just want to make sure that we get them over to the other side with relative ease. So I should be able to do something pretty much just like this. And that is this floor, all nice and load balanced with some nice breathing room to spare. Go ahead and get this closed up. We're not going to worry about the output for right now. We're going to go ahead and get this second copy, essentially, of this floor built up. I'm going to go ahead and just skip through all of this nice and fast like. So now that we have both floors effectively complete, I'm going to quickly go over how I get these 2 floors to merge into one single output going down the side of our factory. So on the back side here, or the opposite side in which you built the constructors for the steel pipes here, if we look straight down in the middle, you can see that we have a clean straight shot down in between the foundry on our first floor. So what I like to do is I'm going to take a merger and run a belt off of this edge here. Use a Mark I lift and bring it down just underneath the sandwich layer. And then for this floor's output, we're going to do something similar. So we're going to take a merger and place it here, but right next to that, we're going to take another merger, and then another merger for this one here, and then obviously place the mergers where needed to bring all of these belts together, like so. But for this middle merger here, what we're going to do is take a Mark 1 lift and bring it up to that same height, and so the output coming from the floor above will come down into this lift, into this merger and connect, and then this line will effectively run all the way down, and we can replace this with a 3 conveyor wall, like so, with these belted back up here. And so from this floor, we can bring our stators all the way down, nice and clean, the side of the factory and from within. And at this point, you can choose to take your stators anywhere in the factory for an output. What I like to do, you can kind of see right here, we have a conveyor wall. So I'm going to take this output of the stators and bring it all the way across, down the lift and out here. And I'm just going to throw it into an awesome sink for the purpose of this guide video. But essentially, that is build complete, 60 stators per minute, pretty simple load balancing and belting logistics. So with that, I'm going to put some glass walls on the outside, run some power to everything, and call it a day. I'll see you guys on the other side. Alright, and that'll wrap up our guide. Thank you all for watching. I hope you found some value in this. If you did, feel free to leave a like. It does help out the channel. If you want to see more content in the future, be sure to subscribe if you're not already. And if you have any questions about the build, go ahead and leave a comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Additionally, I'll be streaming over on Twitch starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, give or take, every Thursday, and possibly on weekends. So go ahead and follow me over there where you can catch me playing the game normally, designing factories that you see in guide format here, maybe taking on a challenge mode or something like that. But we can just kick back, have some fun, and play Satisfactory. So with that, thank you again for watching. Take care. So again, with the smelters, you do want these to hang over by just a little bit, as you can see here, where the feet are. Let me actually double check that. This might be a blooper coming in. Yep, too close. They technically work, as you can see here, and I'll leave this in for the heck of it. I don't like to have the lifts clip essentially into the wall like this, so I'm actually going to redo this and set these back 1 additional meter. Alright, before we get the build started, let's go over what we are going to need for the factory. On the right, you cannot see everything because I forgot to reset it. Cool. So we can just have these running off like so into those. And then we will rely on some conveyor pulls to get that all routed up. Let's go ahead and get these brought up first using our Mark II belts. Nope, I messed that up because we need this over here.